So I am Aimee, I'm 39. I'm a mum to Tom, Ellie and Harper. So Ellie and Harper are twins. And Ellie has a condition called cerebral palsy, amongst others. Yeah, I had to stop working when I found out that I was having twins. Yeah, that's when life really changed, I suppose, and my normal life per se ended and this new journey began. So the minute I found out I was having twins, I knew that was going to be crazy enough, and then when I found out that there was going to be, potentially complications, then yeah, that's when I sold my business. There's 4.5 years difference between Tom and the girls, so he had literally just started kindy, I think, when I got put on bed rest. So I think I took him to his first day of school, but then from that moment on I couldn't really do anything. So I feel like I missed out on an entire year, if not more, of his life, and him being my first child and starting school, like it was a really big moment, and I had to grieve for that period of missing out on so much with him. Ellie, as of today, now has cerebral palsy level 5, which is the most severe form of cerebral palsy. So it's classed as quadriplegic because it affects every limb. She's lost her hearing, so she's profoundly deaf, and she's fully peg fed. She's non-mobile and non-verbal, although you can make yourself the way around a room if you really, really want to. And she communicates beautifully through, making vocalizations, and she absolutely, like you can see, loves people. I think because she's lost her sense of hearing, her visual sense is so heightened. So she's very, very social. But yeah, we've had a lot of challenges. It's been really difficult, and I guess, yeah, one of her main things is also dystonia, which she's very relaxed at the moment, but typically she's super tense, super tight, and then constantly moving all the time, which is why she's got biceps and abs like some of the best athletes in the world, because this girl just does not normally stop moving around, and it just makes it really difficult to do a lot of things, to go places, and yeah, she's not typically, even this tongue thing, like dystonia just affects every single muscle in her body, and yeah, it's really difficult to manage and medicate. We live in a completely different world to most other people. It's really interesting. That's been a really hard thing to grieve in a way, is seeing how easily other people can go about their day with, neurotypical kids. And I'm not saying it's easy, because I've got 2 other ones and I know it's incredibly hard, but it's just hard in all the different ways. Like having a child with a disability like Ellie's, it can be isolating, and it can be difficult just to get in the car and go to the shops. We've got to completely unpack her hoggy. We've got to make sure that she's got food in the syringes, her extension tubes, medications if she needs any. She wears pads, so you've got to make sure that there's just even like trying to find somewhere to change her when you're out and about, never mind trying to get on a plane. I just don't know how people do it. Sometimes it's just, everything is just made 1,000 times more difficult.
Go. Ready, go. Go.
She has to go through on the daily, trying to find like equipment that she's comfortable in. We don't even have anything at the moment that she's super comfortable in because of the limitations of where we live. And just relying on we're very lucky in Australia to have NDIS, but it's an insurance company at the end of the day, and it's really difficult. You've got to push really, really hard to get the basics of what you need, and everything just takes a really long time, and these kids are growing so quickly, and we don't have 6 months to wait for a new wheelchair so that she can be comfortable. That's like her legs. She's sitting in it a lot of the time, especially during school, especially during the day. And you know what we have at the moment, we had to fund really hard to get a wheelchair van for her, but we used to be able to get away with using a car seat in a car, but her legs are now so long, her dystonia is so severe that if we try and do that now, she'll just injure herself. So Ellie is a sensory seeker, and if she finds something hard or anything to feel, she will just keep kicking her legs to feel it, despite, even if it's hurting her. She doesn't understand that she needs to stop doing that. Her brain is wired differently, and she will just keep going. So she's very dependent on her caregivers to make sure that she's safe. So we only have the one wheelchair van at the moment, and that essentially needs to follow her wherever she goes. So at the moment, when she's with her carer, she is still using, she's in a specialised car seat, but we are very quickly running out of time to be able to keep using that. So essentially, Ellie's wheelchair van needs to follow her wherever she goes. And I desperately need, a small car so that on the times when Ellie is with her carer, that I can still function with me and the other children. Luckily most things are covered under NDIS when it comes to her disability, but things like vehicles and insurance and, all the other bills and daily things, that's understandably not covered, but I cannot go back to full-time work because Ellie is so often not at school, unwell, in hospital. The care load is huge. Ellie doesn't sleep very well, so it's almost like having like that raising a newborn feeling, but it's an 8-year-old child, and the responsibilities become heavier and heavier each year, and the carer burden is definitely real, and I'm just not in a position at the moment where I could financially support me and the kids. It's just too much at the moment. So as hard as it is, asking for help, I just don't have any other option right now. Yeah, they have had to miss out on a lot of things. I've had to rely on my mum a lot for any time Ellie gets sick or we have to suddenly go away in an ambulance, and it's very sudden and the kids aren't aware, and then, it's really hard for them to have to be told at school, this is what's happening, you're going to be staying at your nan's, I don't know how long I'm going to be in hospital for. They've got a lot of trauma as well from, I couldn't even tell you how many ambulance rides we've had to take, and suddenly their mum has to be away, and I can never tell them how long for, because you just don't know. You never know what's going to happen once you're in that hospital. So it's been really, really difficult for them. And I think Tom, being that little bit older, he remembers a lot more, but then thankfully, I feel like he's able to cope a little. He's able to understand a bit more, whereas for Harper, it's soul destroying having to leave her and not being able to tell her when I can come home. She's definitely really struggled with that. I think the older that she gets, it's hard. About a month ago, I thought she, had a fairly routine UTI that wasn't getting better, and so we ended up in hospital, and I thought after a few days of antibiotics in hospital she would recover, and then she was only getting worse, and so Ellie has shunted hydrocephalus, which is essentially she needs an implant to help with the flow of spinal fluid, and if that gets blocked or if it stops working, then the spinal fluid essentially builds up in the brain and can cause nausea, dizziness, fatigue, all of these horrific symptoms, and it can become quite life-threatening. Well, it can become life-threatening if you don't pick it up So we had no idea that her shunt was failing. And thought it was a bit of a red herring we thought it was a UTI. So it took a few days to figure out what was going on until she went really downhill. And then we had to be transferred to PCH from our local hospital. And then, yeah, it was go, go, go. So essentially a neurosurgeon came in and said that she needs neurosurgery. It's a blind surgery, so they don't know, you know, you're going into the brain and they don't know what can happen. And yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. I was on my own, it was midnight, and had to make this call as to whether or not I would approve for them to go and do shunt surgery. But luckily she pulled through and it was the best case scenario. And yeah, she's been, you know, it has been quite a slow recovery. She's still not quite back to her usual self. Kids like Ellie are just so vulnerable. So the minute that, I think last year's summer was almost worse than winter. The bugs that were around were just insane, and yeah, we were constantly unwell in hospital. But yeah, she's just amazing and so resilient and just pulls through every single time. It's incredibly terrifying. Kids like Ellie often have vulnerable lungs because she's on medication because she doesn't have an effective swallow, so she's often aspirating on her saliva, or anytime she sort of becomes unwell, it will immediately go to her chest and she'll need oxygen support, something that we have to go to the hospital for. And yeah, we do daily chest physio. She's on a prophylactic antibiotic to try and cover her lungs. The lungs are the scariest part, so if anything's going to go wrong, that's the part that I get most worried about. So yeah, for someone else or one of the other kids, if they just get a cold, cool, it'll be a couple of days and that'll be fine. For Ellie, if she gets a cold, it will generally go to her lungs, we'll end up in hospital, she'll need oxygen support, and it takes her a long time to recover from it. So yeah, it is really scary, but like I said, I don't think you just can't afford to function thinking about that. The NDIS, we're very lucky that they fund all of her equipment, but they're quite interesting in the way they view some therapies. So even Ellie's physiotherapist and occupational therapist at the hospital have recommended that she get weekly massage therapy because of her dystonia. She's constantly tense and like this. But NDIS don't recognise that as a therapy.